Hi, in this video, I'm going to basically walk you through the discovery process, and we will also look into the path trace application. The first thing that you need to do when you actually install the APIC Enterprise module is basically set up few things like the SNMP strings and the CLI credentials that you will use to log into the devices. So on the right hand side, you just need to go here, go to settings. If you see, you can actually use the CLI credentials here, and I have a CLI credentials which is already there in my devices. Just I'm gonna use those credentials here, and I'll add those credentials. And the second important thing that you need to do is about the SNMP strings. Now remember, for the discovery to work, you need at a minimum read-only SNMP string. So you can just name this anything, and I have a read-only SNMP string named defined in the devices. So I'm just going to do that. You can even actually do a write community string, but it's not actually needed for a discovery to run. So I'm not going to basically do that. One of the other things that you can actually do is about the SNMP properties. By default, it times out in 5 seconds. The retries are 3 times. So what you can do is basically change this timeout timer to about 300 seconds, which is the maximum. It just helps to basically ensure that the device doesn't time out when the APIC-EM is trying to poll on SNMP. So these are the basic things that you need to do before the discovery needs to be done. So we'll quickly go into this, and if you see these are the apps that are available on the APIC-EM. So we'll go to the discovery app, and you just need to basically define a discovery. So I'll just name this discovery as test, or say demo. There are two ways we can actually do a discovery. One is basically you can do a CDP based discovery, which means you actually give a seed IP, and then the APIC-EM basically goes and discovers devices based on CDP protocol, it up to a hop of 16. This requires that CDP has to be enabled between the devices. The second option is to basically use the range command, in which you can actually mention the IP address range that you want to basically have APIC-EM to poll to. So in this video, we're going to use the range command. I have a loopback address defined on all my devices, and those are from a particular range. So I'm just going to give those ranges here. So that, and then you can actually use the SNMP string that we actually defined here. This is RO, and you can use the CLI credentials as whatever we've defined. In the advanced tab, you can actually use what protocol order that needs to run. By default, the SSH is highlighted. So I'm just going to use telnet as well, and I'll just use telnet. I'm just not going to use SSH. So it depends upon how the devices has been configured. Now all you need to do is basically just now click start discovery. So once you press discover, when you press start discovery, it basically goes and starts the discovery. So this again, it's going to take some time, and once the discovery starts, it's going to find out all the devices that you can actually read. So I'm just going to pause the video again and come back once the discovery is complete. So the discovery has been completed, and you can see that it has actually discovered 8 devices. The discovery status shows as success, and so now you can actually look at the device inventory here, and you will see that all these devices get listed. So you can see the device name, the device IP addresses, the status of those devices, their uptimes, and what is the inventory collection status. They're all managed from the APIC-EM. So this in this layout, you can actually do a lot of customization. For example, if you go to the customized option, you can actually add a lot of attributes to this table. Say for example, if you want to click device family, it then shows you what device family it is. It is part of routers. If you have switches, it will show it as switches. Similarly, you can actually use iOS firmware that is running on these devices, so it lists out what is iOS firmware that is running on these devices. You can also tag those devices, you can add location to those devices, you can list out what the platform of those devices, you can list down the serial numbers of those devices. Say for example, if you just click this, you will find that the serial numbers of those devices are also listed here. You can also basically do a device role. By default, everything is listed as border router because these are all routers, but if you want to go and change this, you can actually change the role of those devices. Say for example, if the switch is an access switch, you can go and say this as an access switch, so that it is easier for you to basically do a filtering later on once you have the entire inventory of your network. Similarly, you can tag different devices as core, distribution, etc. So this was basically about the device inventory. You can also do an host inventory collection. APIC-EM can actually poll the hosts connected to those devices. Unfortunately, in our lab, we don't have any hosts here, but if you have hosts connected to um, you in your network, those will be discovered by APIC-EM as well here. This is basically done either through CDP as well as through IP device tracking. Let's look at the path trace app. So you go to the path trace and you can actually do a trace between two endpoints which are part of your inventory. So as we know, we had in a demo setup, we had around 8 routers. So we'll do a quickly path trace. So just go to a new path trace and we just mention source. By default, it lists the number of devices that you can actually see. So I'm going to take the first device, and then it shows you which interface that you want to basically do the path trace from. Then on the destination, I'm going to choose the San Jose device, and then it asks me to which IP address on that device it needs to do a trace. So I'll choose the loopback interface. The periodic refresh is basically this trace will be periodically refreshed when you run it. Another thing is about stats. So you can include stats about QoS. If the QoS is configured, it will basically show you the QoS statistics as well. You can also ensure that it shows us the interface statistics. It also shows the device, and if you have any perf configured, you can actually show the perf characteristics as well. So I'm just going to quickly start the trace. So as you can see, it is going to do a fetch path. It actually uses a combination of all the routing protocols and CDP to discover the path from one point to another. So as you can see, it traced a path from 22.0.01 to 22.0.3 through this path. As you can see, I was running OSPF over the network, so it identifies that the routing protocol that is running between the devices to reach from point A to point B. If there had been any other routing protocol, that would also be listed. And down it actually shows you the device details, right? So in interface, the first device being interface IND Bangalore, you can also look at the device statistics. It basically gives you all the statistics about the CPU and the memory usage right on one screen. You can also look at the interface statistics here. So if you have any queue drops or if you have any interface drops, you can actually look at right from the path trace. So similarly, it lists for all other devices. I have no QoS configured on those devices, and that's why it says there is no QoS collection available. But once you have configured QoS on your routers, it also will show you about the QoS statistics if there are any violations of your QoS policies, or if there are any marking policies, those things will be shown. Now this is basically a path from point A to point B. You can actually also do a reverse path trace to ensure that if there are no asymmetric routing that is going on between your devices, right? So on the left hand side shows you about the forward path trace, and on the right hand side shows you about the reverse path trace. So this is basically a very important or a very nice tool for the network administrators to do a troubleshooting. They can just do a path trace from any of those endpoints if they have any network troubleshooting to be done. And then from one screen, it can actually show you all the device details if there are any drops on the interfaces and stuff. So it's a very cool app. So if you leave it, since we had enabled the periodic refresh, the statistics keeps refreshing. So if you have a continuous traffic that is being sent across these two nodes, you will be able to see those traffic details on this path trace. So that concludes our video. In the next video, I'll basically demonstrate the IWAN app. Thank you.